Fortress Maximus Origins. Hello and welcome to another marvelous video. Calling all Transformers fans in the house, today we will talk about a beloved Autobot from the Transformers franchise. This Autobot is packed with incredible power and skills and has played a significant part in many of the series' most iconic moments. Yes, we are talking about Fortress Maximus. In this video, we'll explain Fortress Maximus's genius and dig into the mythology and background of this iconic Transformer. So without wasting any more time, let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Fortress Maximus Origins. Despite his tremendous power, grandeur, and position, Fortress Maximus is a jaded and hesitant warrior. The never-ending fight on Cybertron has driven him down to such an extent that he is tempted to abandon the conflict altogether in order to safeguard his values. Though an exceedingly moral agent, Fortress Maximus's non-violence has its boundaries. More than one Decepticon has discovered that he'll gladly utilize his massive internal weaponry to protect the innocent people threatened by the Decepticons and their merciless invasion operations. The actual scale of Fortress Maximus varies on the universe, but on numerous worlds, he is a three-part Headmaster. He is binary bonded to a minor robot named Cerebros, which constitutes his head. He is also Cog, a tiny component bot. Generation 1, the Transformers animated series. Fortress Maximus made his debut in the final episode of the original Transformers cartoon series, which began airing in 1984, titled Rebirth Part 3, released in 1987. The plot follows the Autobots as they seek to prevent the Decepticons from unleashing a dangerous new weapon, the key to the plasma energy chamber that can potentially destroy Cybertron. After a struggle over the key to the plasma energy chamber, isolated a group of Autobots and Decepticons on the planet Nebulous. A collaboration between the Transformers and the local Nebulans culminated in the creation of Headmaster and Target Master technologies. The planet's wicked governing board, the Hive, pushed the advanced technologies to its full extent when its leader, Zarek, developed the giant Metropoli-sized Scorponok to operate his Headmaster companion and utilized his power to retrieve the plasma energy chamber key. The Autobots were about to pursue the Decepticons who left for Cybertron when Spike Witwicky stated that he and the peace-loving Cerebros would remain behind. After that, Spike and Cerebros escort him to the wreckage of the Hive's original city, where they had resided before migrating underground. Assuming control of the many deserted devices, Spike reassembled the city, Cerebros, and even himself into a Headmaster cyborg capable of withstanding Scorponok's power, and thus Fortress Maximus was created. Soon, Fortress Maximus proceeded to Cybertron and landed in its city form before transitioning into combat station form to assault Scorponok and the Decepticons with a shower of firepower. After Zarek turned Scorponok into a robot, Spike did the same with Fortress Maximus, and the two behemoths clashed. Fortress Maximus represented strength and courage, while Scorponok represented guile and cleverness. The two warriors engaged in a furious combat that revealed the complexity and depth of their personalities. Finally, Fortress Maximus defeated Scorponok, forcing him to fall with such power that he reverted to his city mode. After eliminating the remaining Decepticons and regaining control of the plasma energy chamber, Fortress Maximus piloted the Autobot Headmasters and Target Masters back to Nebulous. Over there, Optimus Prime reveals that after they'd destroy the Hive's corruption from the world, Cerebros would dwell on the planet as its defender, implying that Fortress Maximus would follow suit. Japanese Generation 1 Transformers Headmasters anime series. Fortress Maximus initially appeared as the commander of the Autobots on the planet Master in the Transformers Headmasters anime series, which was released way back in 1987 before most of you were born. In this version, he is shown as a huge robot capable of transforming into a futurist metropolis equipped with skyscrapers and defense systems. His height and strength make him a challenging foe for the Decepticons, who often attempt to capture and control him. In the whole series, he was frequently recognized and referred to as Fortress, which was also the identity he usually assumed. Speaking of his backstory, Fortress, Cup's friend, was once a cyber droid who had not yet learnt to transform. He and many other Transformers fled Cybertron 4 million years ago to evade the never-ending carnage of war. He led a group of tiny Cybertronians on a journey to discover a new, peaceful planet to call home. Sadly, their ship suffered engine failure and landed upon the hostile world of Master. The planet's perilous environment posed an immediate threat to Fortress and his comrades' life as they made their way through a desert after exiting the wreckage. Despite the difficult circumstances, the need to survive resulted in several technical and mental advances, allowing Fortress and his gang to persist. Fortress drove many of the technical advances that happened during their tenure on Master. The most notable of these breakthroughs was the development of transectors, which were bigger Transformer bodies devoid of life that the little Cybertronians could link to as their heads. Sadly, a number of Headmasters, representing half of the populace, rebelled against Fortress and backed a traitor named Scorponok. Finally, Fortress and his companions defeated the traitors and were expelled from Master. However, these insurgents eventually joined forces with the Decepticons, commanded by Galvatron. Soon after, Galvatron launched an attack on Cybertron to seize a freshly produced alloy known as Cybertonuran, which Vector Sigma manufactured. As this happened, Fortress warned Rodimus Prime from responding violently and jeopardizing the safety of all their soldiers. Instead, he proposed an alternative strategy for defeating the Decepticons. On the other hand, Rodimus Prime refused the proposal, and Fortress ultimately caved into his commander's choice. Rodimus Prime was then transported to Cybertron aboard the battleship Maximus. Due to Scorponok's treason, the fight ended in a terrible fashion, with the detonation of a collection of bombs within Vector Sigma's chamber. This incident resulted in tremendous damage to Cybertron, rendering it uninhabitable and causing Galvatron's apparent death. Rodimus Prime realized, with much sadness, that Fortress's advice had been sound and that the period of his generation of Transformers had passed. Consequently, he promised to traverse the cosmos in search of a new planet where the Transformers could live. He also gave Fortress the designation of Supreme Commander, but he preserved the matrix of leadership with himself. Unfortunately, Fortress felt unworthy to serve as both Captain and Supreme Commander, yet he still led the Cybertronians to victory over Galvatron and Scorponok, earning him respect as a leader. When Scorponok launched his last attack on the Cybertronians, Fortress Maximus fought heroically against the long-standing foe. Fortress Maximus triumphed against Scorponok's transector and his scheme to destroy Earth thanks to Six-Shot's assistance, the coordination and collaboration of Cybertronian warriors, and the support and companionship of Daniel Witwicky and the Head Formation. As a result, the Decepticons were forced to retreat permanently. Fortress Maximus in Robots in Disguise cartoon. Transformers Robots in Disguise was an American animated TV series that was released in the year 2000 in Japan and 2001 in the USA. Fortress Maximus's name had been hinted several times over the course of the series, but the formidable robot only debuted in an episode named after him at the end of the show's run. He'd been dormant on Earth for a long time, designed to obey only directives that aided the innocent. Due to his great power, he was hunted down by both the Autobots and the Predacons led by Galvatron. Children had a special bond with him since their innocence allowed them to affect him to some extent. Scourge, expecting to take advantage of his weakness, abducted Carl in a case of mistaken identity. Scourge kidnapped Koji's buddy Carl after deciding that he needed a human to operate Maximus for him. As a result, Maximus was successfully activated and operated by Carl when he emerged once again in a forest. Scourge took this time to demonstrate his betrayal, commanding Fortress Maximus to smash his old commander, Megatron, who had recently been enhanced to Galvatron by the power of the Orb of Sigma's Pyramid. Nevertheless, Carl's selfish desire to beat the enemies and humiliate Koji prompted Maximus to deactivate, and the Autobots came just in time to save him and ultimately take command of Cerebros as Maximus departed. Soon, the Predacons and Decepticons attacked the Autobots' base after Galvatron reprogrammed the latter to follow his orders. However, the Autobots were able to learn how to activate Fortress Maximus from Cerebros, and Wedge was determined to defeat Galvatron. During the battle, Wedge connected with Cerebros and summoned Fortress Maximus. Galvatron tried to fight back with his ship, the Megastar, but was almost destroyed when Fortress Maximus used its maximum firepower attack to blast the ship apart. Galvatron, on the other hand, survived the bombardment and regained his vigor by attaching himself to Maximus and sucking the giant robot's energy, turbocharging himself. In the show's last episode, The Final Fight, Omega Prime challenged Galvatron to a last showdown at the Earth's core, Meanwhile, Koji contacted as many youngsters as possible, directing them to transfer their energies to Fortress Maximus in the hopes of reviving him. Maximus ingested and rechanneled the energies of Omega Prime in the shape of the Matrix Blade, which Prime utilized to destroy Galvatron. Following this occurrence, Maximus and Ultra Magnus joined forces to transport the surviving Decepticons and Predacons back to Cybertron as hostages. The voice actor Steve Blum, famous for being the voice of iconic characters like Goku from Dragon Ball and Wolverine from X-Men, lent his voice to Fortress Maximus in this series. Fortress Maximus in Prime Wars Trilogy cartoons. Fortress Maximus plays an essential part in the 2015 transmedia series called Transformers Prime Wars Trilogy. Fortress Maximus appears in this series as a Titan, a sort of Transformer far larger than ordinary Transformers, and has tremendous strength and power. The Prime Wars Trilogy is a multi-series plot arc that includes 3 chapters: Combiner Wars, Titans Return, and Power of the Primes. Throughout the series, the Transformers are involved in a conflict that threatens to destroy Cybertron. Fortress Maximus becomes increasingly crucial in the Autobots' quest to defend their world. In this version, Fortress Maximus was a Titan that was constructed during the Great War with the help of a Titan master named Emissary. However, he was decommissioned and remained dormant after the war. In present times, following the war's intensification, the Autobots are forced to face a new threat in the shape of Combiners. These massive robots comprise several smaller Transformer units that combine to form a single dominating entity. The Decepticons have gained control of the Combiners, and the Autobots must find a way to stop them from destroying Cybertron. Windblade saw a vision of Fortress Maximus following the completion of the Combiner Wars, confirming the Titan's resurrection. When Trypticon was reactivated, Perceptor suggested locating Fortress Maximus to confront the rampaging Titan. Upon finding Fortress Maximus, Windblade communicated with him, imploring him to assist them, even though he had vowed to live a peaceful life. Initially, he refused to get involved, but Windblade persisted and convinced him to transform back into his robot form and join her in returning to Metroplex City to stop Trypticon. While he viewed Trypticon from afar, Fortress Maximus had reservations about his abilities to overcome him. His confidence rose when he finally confronted Trypticon in battle. He even refused Emissary's help, gaining the upper hand until Trypticon ingested Victorian and the Enigma of Combination, which increased his strength. Luckily, things took a turn for the better for Fortress when Trypticon swallowed the Matrix of Leadership. The Rogue Titan was unable to control the immense power of the Matrix, and as a result, he released all the Transformers he had previously swallowed. Regrettably, the danger was far from over. As Fortress Maximus mourned the loss of yet another Titan, he was suddenly interrupted by the reappearance of Megatronus. Fortress Maximus and Optimus tried to launch a surprise attack on Megatronus, but he easily caught Maximus's Master Sword and threw him aside before killing Optimus. Devastated and unable to mount another attack, Maximus could only watch as Megatronus fled with the Enigma and Matrix. Later in the final chapter, Power of the Primes, Fortress was significantly weakened by the destructive effects of Megatronus's Doomsday weapon. Fortunately, he survived the attack and joined forces with Windblade, who became the Magistrate of City Speakers and helped those who communicated with the Titans. Fortress Maximus storyline and comic series, Marvel's The Transformers comic book. In this version, Fortress Maximus began his career as an architect, designing and constructing several iconic Cybertronian landmarks. During the Great War, he joined the fight but became bored as it became more intense. He built a base in the Manganese Mountains and battled Scorponok's Decepticons. Maximus and his troops successfully ambushed and defeated the Decepticon commandos after destroying an Autobot city. On the other hand, Maximus astonished his fellow Autobots by revealing his intention to abandon the conflict and move to the peaceful planet of Nebulus. They agreed to accompany him and built the Steel Haven together before sailing to Nebulus. When the Autobots, headed by Fortress Maximus, arrived on the planet Nebulus, they were mistaken for hostile species, resulting in a confrontation with the native Nebulan populace. Despite the urge to react, Maximus opted to pursue peace, He led a squad of 10 Autobots without weapons to the Nebulan capital to establish diplomatic ties, but it failed. Maximus and 4 others removed their heads as a final option to demonstrate that they were not a danger. The commander of the Nebulan Planet Watchers was eventually persuaded of their benign intentions, and Maximus successfully forged a peaceful partnership between the Autobots and the Nebulans. Their dismembered heads and headless bodies were stored in an abandoned munitions depot outside the planetary capital. Galen would meet with the still-functioning leader of Fortress Maximus on every occasion to inform him of the city's continuous anti-robot rallies. Unfortunately, because of Lord Zarek's sabotage, Scorponok and his Decepticons arrived on Nebulus. Despite Maximus's warning that handing up the Autobots to Scorponok would not prevent an assault, Galen couldn't just restore the Autobots to their bodies in accordance with the Autobot-Nebulan Peace Treaty. So, Galen and Arcana devised a new scheme that entailed bioengineering 5 Nebulans to interact with shifting armor and serve as replacement heads for Cybertronian bodies. As a result, the Headmaster upgrade was created, allowing Galen to become Fortress Maximus's binary-linked partner. Together, they guided the Autobots to victory over Scorponok and his Decepticons. Later, they joined forces again to bring the other Headmasters to the Grax Communications Complex, where the Decepticons were said to have captured some Nebulan leaders. Unfortunately, the Decepticons had also obtained Headmaster abilities, with Galen's opponent, Zarek, uniting with Scorponok. Scorponok's warriors overwhelmed Fortress Maximus and the others and took them captive, using many Nebulans as a distraction. Maximus was dormant until Zarek, who momentarily overcame Scorponok's hold over him, rescued Galen and other Autobot allies. Maximus temporarily led his soldiers against the Decepticon target masters, but opted to withdraw rather than fight. To defend Karaja's retreat from destruction, he used Karaja's metal artwork from the planet Nebulus to fight his attackers. As Maximus and Galen returned to their encampment, they started their plan to investigate a recent distress beacon sent by the Autobots from Earth. While this decision would require Galen and other Nebulans affiliated with the Transformers to leave their planet for an extended period of time, they were confident that Scorponok's Decepticons would follow them and leave their home planet alone. Fortress Maximus was completely revamped during their journey to Earth, amplifying both his size and weaponry. Galen, who was now double the height of an ordinary Transformer, merged with Cerebros, who functioned as a supplementary connection between Galen and Maximus. After landing on Earth, Fortress Maximus took his fellow Headmasters to Mount St. Hilary, the location of the Autobot distress signal. Following the recovery of the injured Goldbug, the gang came upon Spike, who had come in quest of Buster Witwicky, his lost elder brother. Spike requested the Autobots for assistance in locating his brother, but Fortress Maximus was mainly focused on their primary purpose of finding the Autobots on Earth and ignored his plea. As a result, Maximus sent his forces to pursue the fuel trail left by the Lost Ark. Scorponok's squad, on the other hand, quickly followed Maximus to Earth and arrived in the same cave, and a battle started. At the end of the battle, when Spike was trying to hide from Scorponok, he retreated deep into the caves of volcanoes with Scorponok in pursuit. Scorponok was also pursued to the same area by Fortress Maximus. When the caverns constricted, Maximus was compelled to send Cerebros ahead, and finally, Galen had to abandon Cerebros behind to cross a precarious rock bridge. This choice proved catastrophic, as Scorponok utilized the diversion to trigger a cave-in, killing Galen. When Scorponok walked away laughing, a dying Galen handed over his control helmet to Spike, who seized command of Fortress Maximus and ultimately drove the Decepticons away. After that, Spike went through the whole binary bonding procedure before taking over as leader of Steel Haven's Autobot crew. When an Autobot distress signal was received in the Arctic, Fortress Maximum was one of the several Autobots who responded, only to discover that it was sent by Buster Witwicky, who was succumbing to the cold. Maximus placed his human brother in a special thermal container, which helped him regain his normal body temperature. However, the Decepticons attacked shortly after, and Maximus was targeted by the Horrorcons and Ratbat, who clung to him stubbornly and forced Buster out of the warming chamber. Surprisingly, this turned out to be advantageous as Buster reminded Ratbat that the conflict had been orchestrated by Starscream, leading to both Ratbat and Maximus calling for all parties to cease fire. Autobots and Decepticons used Ratbat's spaceship to confront Starscream in space, as he intended to harness the incredible power of the Underbase. Despite Fortress Maximus and his allies' effort to stop him, they only managed to slow him down. Starscream absorbed a small portion of the Underbase's energy, making him almost invincible. In his overpowered state, Starscream destroyed the island spaceship, and Fortress Maximus saved Buster by carrying him to safety within one of his body compartments. Soon, Spike informed Optimus that it was the appropriate moment for him to move on from his life with the Autobots. After that, for a long time, Spike stayed on Earth while Fortress Maximus remained inactive. When the Dinobots returned from Hydra's 4 just before the final battle against Unicron, Spike's lifeless body was still on board the Ark. The Ark crashed to Earth in the Canadian tundra after Unicron was defeated. Despite being hesitant to rejoin the Autobots, Spike was convinced to do so by Fortress Maximus, who became anxious and desperate after months of inactivity. Maximus quickly gained control of their body and subdued Spike, but when Maximus acted alone, he could not resist the merciless Galvatron. Spike and Fortress Maximus understood the strength they possessed when working together. They considered themselves the last Autobot on Earth and the planet's protector and fought as a team. Eventually, Fortress Maximus emerged victorious by throwing his enemy into a frozen lake. Transformers Generation 1 Dreamwave. In this incarnation, Ultras Magnus and a human-sized Fortress Maximus commanded the Autobot armies on Cybertron, but they encountered problems when the planet's resources were depleted. Recently developed Micromasters started to wonder about their place in the Autobot army and if the bigger Autobots guided them in the correct route. Despite their best efforts, the fight continued, and Fortress Maximus became discouraged after a vain attempt to defeat Skystalker and the Decepticons. In the end, he disbanded the Autobot army to pursue other options. The 2005 IDW continuity. According to this account, Fortress Maximus was built amid the controlling conflict between Autobots and Decepticons. He was a 0.1%er, a rare Cybertronian with a striking green spark. Although less physically powerful than other renowned Transformers, such as Grimlock or Optimus Prime, he was nonetheless a difficult opponent for most Decepticons owing to his vast bulk and assortment of heavy armaments. In the year 1408, 100 years before Cybertron's demise, Fortress Maximus was a strict prison warden. He was in charge of Garrus 9, an Autobot-run correctional facility that held convicts from both sides of the Autobot-Decepticon war. The inmates were stripped down to their bare essentials, consisting just of their charge and laser core, and housed a facility known as the Rig. Fortress Maximus had exclusive control over when and if the captives would be rebuilt and freed. When Fortress Maximus returned to Garrus 9 following Megatron's catastrophic attack on the Autobots, he assumed control of guarding the prison from the predatory army. Everything changed when the ruthless Phase 6er Overlord gained charge of the Decepticon forces and led them to victory against Fortress Maximus. To keep the liberated captives loyal, Overlord permitted them to torment Maximus as long as they kept him alive. Overlord was keeping Maximus alive for a reason. Maximus knew how to enter a restricted compartment beneath the prison's Aquitas supercomputer that stored a valuable machine. As the Autobots could not execute a rescue attempt, Maximus was imprisoned for over 3 years and subjected to multiple torture sessions by Overlord. Despite his body deteriorating from the torture, Maximus refused to give up the information and developed a deep animosity for Prowl, whom he blamed for abandoning him and his comrades. When the Autobots ultimately dispatched the Wreckers to free Fortress Maximus and the other inmates, they discovered him in a comatose state. His body was attached to the Aquitas chamber's door, and his brain was constantly entering code in an attempt to bypass the lock. As the Decepticons stormed the Aquitas chamber, Iron Fist saved Fortress Maximus, and the Wreckers defeated Overlord. Maximus, on the other hand, was placed on life support. Fortress Maximus was relocated to Delphi and remained inactive for the duration of the war. After a battle with Genericons, First Aid used a dangerous and untested operation to resuscitate Maximus by using his own Spark's energy. After being resurrected, Fortress Maximus found himself in a facility contaminated with red rust by 2 Decepticon combiners, Sonic and Boom. He discovered the Decepticons were holding the other Autobots at gunpoint, and he respectfully reminded them that they were the first Decepticons he had seen since Overlord's demise. He also informed them that they were at the worst possible location in the cosmos before ruthlessly killing them. Ratchet referred Fortress Maximus to Rung for psychological therapy following his activities on Delphi. After numerous sessions with little improvement, he grew upset and assaulted Autobots, which reminded him of Overlord. He then attempted to kidnap Rung during a treatment session with Whirl, another Autobot, and demanded that the ship be turned back so he could face Prowl over leaving him. Swerve accidentally shot Rung in the head, and Whirl stabbed Fortress Maximus with a pipe due to the commotion. Later, Maximus did apologize to Rung once the latter recovered. Soon after, Overlord began murdering Autobots on the Lost Light. Rodimus assisted in activating a code phrase that allowed Fortress Maximus to demolish Overlord. Although being unable to destroy the Phase Sixer completely, Fortress Maximus was able to imprison Overlord in his temporal jail and expel him into space. In this version, Maximus was an average-sized Transformer, similar size to Jetfire. Transformers vs. G.I. Joe. Fortress Maximus and Scorponok were longtime rivals in this edition. They had battled in several locations, creating tremendous damage and wiping out numerous civilizations. In the present day, Black Arachnia's influence had converted Fortress Maximus into a brainless and crippled beast, leading him to roam aimlessly about Cybertron. Maximus captured a spacecraft carrying US-7 and the October Guard and consumed the people. The hostages were eventually freed after a squad of Joes and Autobots invaded Maximus, destroying Black Arachnia and restoring Maximus's psyche. He later joined the war against the Decepticons and Cobra, where he faced Trypticon, who chewed off his head. On the other hand, his head changed into Cerebros, enabling a surprise attack. Despite this, the Autobots were eventually beaten, and Fortress Maximus's severed head was left where it fell. Later, Snake Eyes bonded with Fortress Maximus through the Master Sword, replacing his old partner Galen. They persuaded Metroplex to rejoin the war and launched an attack on the Decepticons as part of an Autobot Joe army with Scorponok, who was controlled by Snake Eyes' ally Scarlet. Despite Megatron's intimidating bulk in his Mega Megatron form, Maximus and Scorponok only had to combat him briefly before Shipwreck defeated him. The Rise of the Beasts. The storyline of Beast Wars Uprising goes like this. The Autobots and Decepticons have completed their Great War and formed the Maximals and Predacons as their successors in the future 300 years after the war. These new Transformers are restricted to Cybertron and fight for their creators' enjoyment. But some of them begin to doubt the motivations for their battles, sparking a new war among the Cybertronians. As the Autobot-Decepticon battle reached Nebulous, Cerebros and Spike Witwicky were turned into Fortress Maximus to fight the birth of Megazorek. However, the city's devastating bots' abilities merely added to the planet's devastation, and the Human Confederation determined that the existence of Maximus and other strong weapons like him was a crucial element in the Transformers battle. As a consequence, they were able to confine the fight to a specific region of space. Following the war's conclusion, Fortress Maximus ran out of energy and was stuck in robot form in Tarn. His frozen, towering structure was repurposed into a prison by the builders of Cybertron, where it languished for an unknown amount of time. While Cerebros had died, his mind remained within Maximus, thanks to the help of 3 cyberdroids, Cord, Plasma, and Gran. Soon, Cerebros found the Terran Singularity, which had the ability to resurrect all humans that had ever existed and perished. Still, when he asked for the return of his Witwicky colleagues, the Terrans refused. Instead, they gave him the Energon Matrix technology, which he used to construct a new proto-race of Cybertronians. Maxima, the offspring of Fortress Maximus, and Shi Hu Sang was among the earliest protoforms created. In the end, Leo Convoy organized a rebellion against the Builders in order to infiltrate Fortress Maximus and release the inmates trapped there. Nevertheless, their early efforts were futile since Cerebros possessed the capacity to control the invaders' thoughts, prompting them to turn against one another. The squad succeeded in their third effort by sacrificing Buzzclaw to Cerebros and leveraging the subsequent mental bond to paralyze him. They successfully eliminated Cord and Plasma, captured Gran, and neutralized Maximus. Going up against the Enterprise, Star Trek vs. Transformers. In this comic book series, the Autobots fled Earth on board the Titan Fortress Maximus after the outbreak of World War III in pursuit of Energon throughout the galaxy. After several decades, the Autobots were suddenly assaulted by the Decepticons, who were on their own Titan dubbed Trypticon while traveling past Cygnus 7. This resulted in a furious fight that severely damaged Fortress Maximus, and he finally collapsed onto the planet's surface, putting both Autobots and Decepticons in hibernation. Several years later, the Federation created a dilithium mine on the planet, and when assessing a prospective mine shaft, the miners accidentally ignited Fortress Maximus's repair systems, reviving the Titan. Maximus's self-governing components were unable to distinguish between Autobots and Decepticons, resulting in the Decepticons being reactivated first. Captain Kirk's Enterprise reacted to the distress signal and discovered the location of Fortress Maximus. Before Kirk could persuade the Autobots of his good intentions, they attacked him. The Decepticons took advantage of the situation and imprisoned the Autobots inside them in the mine. Ratchet conceived a bold strategy to restart Fortress Maximus to solve this situation. The proposal entailed developing a technology to access Kirk's memories via the Titan. Ratchet was able to recreate Fortress Maximus into an exact clone of the Enterprise using images of the Enterprise's blueprints that he had obtained from Kirk's head, returning the Titan to full operation. As Fortress Maximus was reactivated, it erupted from the ground and engaged in war with the Decepticons and their new Klingon allies. Kirk assumed complete command of the Titan's mind and used its phasers to destroy Trypticon before beaming RC and Curry's Federation hostages to safety. Kirk turned the Titan into a new robot form to face the giant Decepticon, dubbing them together as Fortress Tiberius and sharing the same consciousness. During the Titanic conflict, Kirk had to keep Fortress Maximus's passion for vengeance at bay while employing the Titan's fearsome weapons to defeat Trypticon. Despite the temptation to succumb to the need for revenge, Kirk kept his cool and delivered a solid blow to Trypticon that finally defeated the Decepticon. As the Decepticons abruptly declared a retreat, Kirk used Tiberius's sensors to find that Starscream had already taken a considerable amount of dilithium and planned to attack the Klingon Empire. Optimus and the other Autobots collaborated with Fortress Tiberius and caught up with the actual Enterprise over Cygnus 7 to assist in restoring the damaged ship. Ultimately, both ships pursued Starscream to the Klingon world of Kronos after repairing the Enterprise, where they discovered that Megatron and his Decepticons had defeated him. Megatron intended to conquer the Klingon world and establish it as the center of his dominion. Again, Fortress Tiberius and Trypticon fought valiantly, but Soundwave's oral assault finally rendered Autobot helpless. The onslaught did not, however, hinder the Klingons, and thanks to Kirk's warning about Cybertronian vulnerabilities, they were able to vanquish the Decepticons with a fleet of warbirds. The Autobots and Omus Prime then decided to depart on Fortress Tiberius, but they pledged to remain accessible in case the Federation ever needed their assistance once more. Marvelous verdict. That brings us to the end of the video. So as we can see, Fortress Maximus is one of the most iconic characters in the Transformers universe. He is a formidable warrior who can transform into a spaceship and lead the Autobots on their missions. However, his character is more complex than just a regular fighting machine. We get a slight taste of his complexities through his history of conflicts with the Decepticons and his unexpected alliances with Captain Kirk, the Enterprise crew, and the G.I. Joes. His story illustrates the potential for partnerships to develop and even for enemies to become allies during battle. What do you like about Fortress Maximus? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, click the like button and share it with all your loved ones. I'll see you soon.